Hello and welcome to Saturday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, and today I think we've got a monster for you. The setter with the most gentle pseudonym on the world Sudoku scene is TotallyNormalCat. Unfortunately, TotallyNormalCat's Sudokus are some of the most brilliant and devious that I've ever seen, and this one is called Wave Particles. And we've had 2 requests to solve this from people who haven't actually managed to solve it themselves. So I had a look at it on Logic Masters Germany, and the comments are basically that this, from the small band of brilliant people who have managed to solve it, is that this is a masterpiece. So I'm going to give it a go for you. I'm attempting this relatively early in the day so that if I mess it up, I can move on to another puzzle and hopefully you won't be videoless later on this evening. Anyway, a couple of things to mention before I read you the rules. Firstly, do try and have a listen to our new podcast. We released it a couple of days ago on the channel. I'll try to remember to put a link on the screen there. And let us know if you enjoy it. We're certainly intending to make more. And the big news, of course, is that today is the 1st of May, and that means we have released, by the time you see this video, Matthias Martinka's sort of Sudoku puzzle hunt on Patreon. It should have gone live at 6 o'clock this evening, and I can promise you literally hours of fun. The puzzles are exceptionally good, and one of the Sudokus in the hunt is one of the best puzzles I've ever solved in my life. So we're going to give some merch to the first correct solution we receive, and a shout out on the channel for anybody who correctly solves it. So what are you waiting for? Get cracking. Now, let's move on to TotallyNormalCat's puzzle, and I'll read you the rules, which seem a bit scarce given the lack of information in this grid. But anyway, here we go. Normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small total given in the top left corner, and digits must not repeat within a cage. So completely standard killer Sudoku rules. And then digits along an arrow must sum to the digit in that arrow's circle. So to get this digit, whatever's there is the sum of those 3 squares, which is also going to be the sum of those 3 squares. And that is it. There is no knight's move to help us here, which is a little bit surprising because there doesn't seem to be enough information at first blush to solve this, but there no doubt is. It's just up to me to try and find it. Do have a go yourselves. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play, and with trepidation, let's get cracking. And right, I mean, I can see very quickly, obviously, that each one of these, I don't know what we'll call them. We'll call them planets, like in Jovial's Syzygy. Each one of the planets here has to total at least 6, because you can see that every single arrow is consisting of 3 cells in the same row of the grid. So the minimum I could make these 3 squares would be 1, 2, and 3, which add to 6. So these planets have to be at least 6. Now, I doubt that's going to crack the puzzle, but let's just have a think about what that means. So, probably, I'm now thinking 1s are important. That might not be the thought I meant to have, but I can certainly see that I'm going to have a lot of 1s on these limbs. Yeah, in fact, there's a thought. Right, I've now worked out there is a 9 in one of these squares. Because if there isn't, let's imagine just for a moment this is a 6, 7, 8 triple. What do we know about the digits 6, 7, and 8? If we're summing to 6, 7, and 8 in 3 cells, the thing we know is that we're always going to require a 1. Because 2, 3, and 4 add to 9. So there would be 1s in each of these little 3-cell segments. And then, where would you put a 1 in column 5? The answer is nowhere. There wouldn't be anywhere to put it. So if you had 1s along each of those arrows, you can now see you cannot place a 1 in column 5 at all. So what that means is, let's put it in, we can put, I don't really know how to do this, but we'll pencil mark a 9. There must be a 9 in one of those squares. And that 9 must have, hang on, let me get this right. So the 9 must have a 2, 3, 4 limb on it, We don't know what the other side is, but we do know. In fact, this is going to be monstrous to actually try and solve this, because I don't know which of these is 9, and I don't know which limb has to be 2, 3, and 4. But one of them will have to be, because we need to allow the possibility for a 1 in this column. I don't really know. I don't know whether to sort of just guess where the 9 goes, or to... let me just think about this. Hang on a second. Is there a way of telling where this 9 needs to end up? I don't know. If there is, I'm not understanding how to do that, I'm afraid. So all we know one of these is a 9. Let's just imagine it's this one, just so that we can just visualize it for a moment. Now this 9 affords the opportunity for there to be a 1 in column 5, and it does that by not having to have a 1 on at least one limb of its arrow. So what you could do is you could have 2, 3, 4 in both directions, and now the 1 could be in one of 2 positions in column 5. But it's possible. We just know one of these has to not have a 1. There must be at least 1, 2, 3, 4, because if we went, for example, 1, 2, 6, 1, 3, 5, although the 9 arrow is satisfied, I now can't put 1s into this column again. So one of these is a 9. And there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4 arrow. Okay. What does that mean? I don't have a clue. I do not have a clue. So two of the arrows will not be 9. Obviously, if one of them's 9, the other 2 by force cannot be. So there are at least 4 1s on limbs, on arrows. At least 4. There might be 5, depending on what the 9 has on it. So let's imagine this was a 6, just for the sake of argument. There would be 1s on all of those squares. Let's imagine this is a 9. We don't know whether there are any 1s around that. Then this one would have to be 6. Well, this one would have to be 7 or 8, and there would definitely be 1s on this one. So now, yeah, I can see it's getting... no, hang on a minute. Maybe it's something to do with these 11 cages. Because something that I do know about an 11 cage is you can't put a 1 in it. So maybe I've got to think about column 1 and column 9. Is that the idea here? And where we can put 1 in these columns. That is interesting. That is interesting, because we've got 5 here. We can't put a 1 there. You can't put a 1 there. You can't put a 1 there. And you've got at least 4 arrows. And the arrows, that is weird. Look, the arrows never intersect because of the way that TotallyNormalCat has positioned these arrows. They never look the purple squares. So the purple squares not having a 1 is not influenced by whichever order these digits go in at all. So we can pick 4 arrow stems as having 1s on, but it's arbitrary, it doesn't matter. And that means that we're left with... Oh, this is getting complicated. It's getting really complicated because the other thing is that wherever the 9 goes, if I imagine that the 9 is here, just for the sake of argument, we know that there must be a 1 in one of those two positions, otherwise we can't put a 1 in column 5. So that 1, wherever it goes, is ruling out a 1 from one of those two squares. So I think that however wherever the 9 is doesn't matter, because it's just, you know, we're just trading where these green bars go. But there are only going to be 2 rows left. Oh, it's the same on this side, is it? It's the same. Ah, it's the same in column 9. I was focusing on column 1, but it's the same in column 9. Right, I think the only way I can show this is to show you an example. So let's just look at an example here. Let's do this. Oopsie, I wanted to make that one 6. I don't think it matters. But let's do 6, 9, 8 like this. And let's ask the question where 1 goes in column 1 and 1 goes in column 9. Now, we now know for sure we've got all those 1s in the grid. We know one of these two squares is a 1, but we don't know which one it's going to be. I'm just going to say it's going to be this one. Now, where do we put the 1 now in column 1? It's got to be in one of those two cells, for sure. Now, where do we put the 1 in column 9? It's got to be in one of those two squares, for sure. Now, that is interesting, but what would happen if instead of the 9 being here, the 9 was here, for example? How would these two squares change? Let's check. Let's check. I think what's going to happen is that this row always has a 1 in it, but the position of the second one is going to move depending on which one of these digits we pick. But the only way to really, I think, conclusively show that, let's shift the 9 and the 6 around and have another think about what that means. So now we can go, now we know there's 1s on these limbs. There's a 1 in what? Yes, it does. That's exactly. So what I said was correct. What I said was correct. Because now let's have a look. We can now see that because one of these two squares is a 1, again, let's just make it this one for the sake of argument. Where do we put the 1s in this column? Well, the only positions we've got available are this one. This is going to fix what I see what this is doing to the 9. This is getting interesting. This is getting interesting because there are two things I've now figured out, I think. The first is that if we look down column 1 and ask where 1 can go, there's one position here and one position here. Look down column 9, this position and this position. So the availability of these two squares to take 1s is crucial. One of these must be a 1, because if it isn't, you cannot put a 1 in both column 1 and column 9. But the interesting part of this is actually in relation to the 9, because I need to have the flexibility to put a 1 in column 1 and a 1 on column 9. And I can't do that if this limb of the 9 arrow contains a 1, because there's now only one position for 1s in column 1. Because, of course, there are now 5 arrow stems that have to contain 1s. There's definitely a 1 next to the 9 planet. And there's these two squares which could never be a 1. So there's only one position in column 1. And there's only one position by the analogous logic in column 9. And those positions are the same positions. Those. And I can't put double 1 into those positions. So we have now worked out that we have no idea. I'm going to have to delete all of these pencil marks because they could be completely wrong. But it's now necessary for wherever the 9 lives in these 3 squares, it has 2, 3, 4 on both sides of it. So let's get rid of all this. and undo the progress we would seem to have made. And we have now learnt that the 9 arrow is a 2, 3, 4 on both limbs. And what does that mean? I have not got a Scooby-Doo. I don't think I'm any closer to knowing where the 9 goes. And now what we've got to work out what on earth that means. I know there's a 1 in one of those 2 squares. That's the other thing I have learned. I'm going to put those, I'm going to do that. So there's a 1 in one of these 2 squares. There's 2, 3, 4 on both 9 arrows. And sorry if I'm repeating myself. I'm just trying to get clear in my mind what on earth is going on in this mad puzzle. That is the one thing I am sure of at this point. This puzzle is mad. How you have the idea to do this? It should be sort of a textbook, a medical textbook. If anyone comes up with the idea of wave particles in a Sudoku like this, they need to be committed. So I know the 9, wherever it lives, has 2, 3 and 4 on its arrows. So I'm going to have problems with 2s now, aren't I? That's going to be what I have to do now. I've got to think about 2s. So let's imagine this was the 9 again, just for the sake of argument, because now I'm interested in 2s. Because now I've got 2s on these squares. Now, what would happen if this was a 6, 7 pair? The answer is the puzzle breaks again for exactly the same reason it would break if this was a 6, 7, 8 triple. It breaks because if this is a 6, 7 pair, what digits do we know have to be on the arrow stems in both cases? Well, the answer is the 2. There would have to be, because 6 would be 1, 2, 3, 7 would be 1, 2, 4, and if you had 2s in all of these arrow strings here, you can't put a 2 in column 5. Because the 9 arrow is 2 lots of 2, 3, 4. This is it's just extraordinary. So now I know there's an 8. Now I know there's an 8. I know there's a 9. I don't know where it goes. But I know there's an 8 because there can't be a 6 and a 7. And that means that the 8, wherever it lives, let's just put it here for the sake of argument. If the 8 is here, what you can't do is put 1, 2, 5 on the 8 arrow, because that way you've broken the puzzle again. You still can't put a 2 in column 5 because you can't put 1 in either of those squares. So the 8 needs to allow a 2 in one of these positions. So if this is a planet, one of the moons of the 8 has to be a 2, which means that one of the limbs of the 8, one of the arrows must be 1, 3, 4. We don't know what this one is. And obviously we don't know. Firstly, we don't know whether this is the 8. Secondly, we don't know whether the 1, 3, 4 is high on it or low on it. We know very little still, but we are learning slowly how this puzzle works. Right. So in this situation, this would now be a 2. Now, I'm now wondering whether this gives us a problem with 3s or 4s, but that's going to be incredibly difficult to see. I'll have a 2 here in this iteration. Let me just think about this. I know I've got a 1 in one of those 2. I've got to put 3 or 4 into this column, and whatever this is going to make that difficult. Is that right? Because if that's a 6, I've now got a problem with 3s. Yeah, in fact I do. I've very nearly got a terminal problem with 3s. If this is a 6, oh, I see what you've done here. Right, okay. So this is definitely interesting. Whether this is 6 or 7, let's just look at 6 just for the sake of argument first. I think the point is that the moment this becomes 6, there's a 3 on both of these arrows because they are 1, 2, 3 triples. Now look, where do you put the 3 in this column? Well, the answer is in neither of those squares. A 3 can never be a moon of the 9 because of the 2, 3, 4 pairs. So it doesn't matter where the 9 goes in these 3 squares. The logic is sound wherever the 9 goes. You can't put a 3 next to the 9. Now the 8 definitely has a 2 on the 1, 3, 4 side. So if the 8 arrows other limb, which is not 1, 3, 4, was 1, 3, 4, you can't put a 3 in column 5 again. This is completely crazy. You can't put a 3 in column 5. Now, what would happen? What would happen? This is beautiful. It's just beautiful. Good grief, it's bringing tears to my eyes. What would happen if this was a 7? If this is a 7, you've now got the same problem, but with 4. It's the same problem. You can't... Where do you put the 4 in the column? It can't surround the 9. If this is a 1, 3, 4 limb, you can't put it here at all. So whether this is 6 or 7, the puzzle's broken. So this limb is not 1, 3, 4. It needs to be 1, 2, 5. And this square needs to take the difficult digit. So we still have no clue about the ordering here. We have no clue about... We know there's an 8 and a 9. We don't know whether there's a 6 or a 7 along with that. But we do know that the 9 arrow is 2 lots of 2, 3, 4. The 8 arrow is a 1, 3, 4 and a 1, 2, 5 because otherwise the difficult digit can't be placed in column 5. We know that the moons of the 8 are a 2 for certain and a 3 or a 4 depending on what this digit is. And we know... We don't know what this digit is. We do know whatever it is, it definitely has a 1 or a 2 on its arrow. So, what does all that mean? Is that telling us something obvious? What digit has become difficult now? 2. So I'm now wondering whether we do the same thing that we did with 1s in column 1 and column 9. Is that what we have to do? Because what we're learning is that these arrows, whatever combination they are in, they have a lot of repeated digits. Whoopsie, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. Oh, I've messed that up. I didn't mean to do that either. We have lots of repeated digits. And depending on what this digit is, and again, it doesn't matter if whatever this digit is appears here or here. At the moment, we've not used any sort of vertical logic at all. We're just doing horizontal logic and trying to learn about how these planets work. So at some point we are going to have to fix their orientation in space, but at the moment we don't need to do that. So whatever this is, it's going to have either 3s or 4s on its arrows, and therefore 3s or 4s are going to become difficult digits. We can just about deal with the 3s and the 4s in column 5 by using the satellite of the 8, but we can't, or we don't know how to deal with the 3s and the 4s and the 2s in column 1 and column 9. But the problem here, the problem here is that this is not as good as it was with 1s, because there's more license. Because 2s and 3s and 4s can go in 11 cages. Oh, bobbins. So does that mean this is not the right thought to have? Let's just work out. So if we did have, there would definitely have to be 2s. There definitely have to be 2s. Whether this is 6 or 7, it's definitely got 2s on its arrow. So there are a lot of 2s. There are 5 2s for sure along arrow stems. So there are 5 2s along arrow stems, which is going to rule out 5 rows from containing a 2. And therefore, now we also know that we've got to put a 1 somewhere here. Oh, but this is going to get very complicated. Because do we know anything about where that 1 goes? We know it could be here, but I think actually it can be in any of these squares as well, depending on the orientation of the planets. Oh, this is going to get horribly complicated. Sorry, I'm just trying to think about this for a second. What am I not understanding? I can't use... Yeah, I know it's really tempting to use this vertical 12 thing, but I can't because I don't know what goes into this square. Because obviously it's fine. If this turns out to be an 8 and this turns out to be the 1, 2, 5 limb, then I could use this logic. But this could just as easily be a 9 or a 6 or a 7, and all of those put different digits in here. I don't know what I'm missing something, I feel. One of those 2 squares has to be a 1 on this iteration. Doesn't matter where the 9 goes, I'm just trying to visualize what's going on. So in this column, there are always going to be 2 positions for 1s. 2s are going to be ruled out for certain of 5 open positions. Let's just check 3s and 4s as well, because obviously depending on what this digit is, I'm making 3 or 4 difficult. So let's just do an example just so that we can visualize it. If this is a 7, that's made 4 the difficult digit, because now we've got 4s along these strings. We're going to have a 4 here because it's the only place 4 could go in column 5. And then we would have the challenge. Whoa, it's going to get tricky. It really is going to be difficult. Then I've got the challenge of placing 4 in column 1. I've not even thought about how this impacts column 9, but I figure that it's going to be a very similar problem. Although maybe it's not actually, because they're this 5. So 4 in column 1 in this variation would have to be in one of those 2 squares. It would be forced. Let me just, sorry, I know I'm being incredibly slow about this. I just need to think about this for a second. Or probably more than a second, but I just want to think about it. Because that's weird. That is weird, actually. The fact I have to put 1, 2, and 4 in this column If that's a 1, have I given myself a terminal problem? I can't put... if that's a 1, you have to put the 2 and the 4 in the same cell, I think. Is that true, and is it generalizable? If that's a 1, what cell is available? Let's just look at that. If this is a 1, where does the 2 and the 4 go? Not there, not here, not here, and in neither of those. Yeah, they'd have to both go there. So this is the question. This is definitely the question. Is this true no matter which orientation of planets we choose? And not only orientation, but which selection of planets we choose, because there's no need for this. Yeah, but it's certainly true. It doesn't matter if instead of these digits being true, let's imagine instead of this being a 7, it was a 6. We're going to have exactly the same issue, because that now we have to put 3s in these cells. You have to put a 3 in column 5 here. And now your problem that you had with 4s has just been transposed into 3s. You've got exactly the same issue. You can't put 3s in any of these squares. The 3 needs to go here. You can't put 2 in any of these squares. The 2 has to go here, and you're broken. Now, surely this is broken no matter which order I pick here, because I have not done any vertical logic. Wherever the 9 goes, any of these 3 squares, the 2 and the difficult digit, which is the 3 or the 4, are ruled out from its limbs. If this was 9, you'd rule out 2 rows for sure from being 2 and the difficult digit. Wherever the 8 goes, yeah, it's beautiful. It doesn't matter where the 8 goes. This is the point. And it doesn't matter which way the limbs go round. But you always have to have the digit 2 and the difficult digit as moons of the 8. And the combination of the 2 and the difficult digit, together with the arrow stems, rule out 2 and the difficult digit from both those positions wherever the 8 lives in the column. And then obviously whatever the 6 or the 7 is and wherever it lives, it's creating a problem with 2, because whether it's 6 or 7 there must be a 2 on its arrow, and the difficult digit, because the difficult digit will appear in its arrows. So I think this logic is good, and this logic is going to allow me to place a 1 in the grid, because I now cannot, because of the problem I've got in column 1 with the digit 2 and the difficult digit, I cannot absorb this degree of freedom by placing a 1 here. So this square is a 1, and that square is not a 1. And now, good grief, now I've got to do a whole load of deleting. Or do I? Do I want to delete everything, or do I want to just think about it? What I'm not going to do is use this 1 on this arrow. And the reason I can't use this 1 on this arrow is that this could be a 9. And if this is a 9, this arrow would be 2, 3, 4, and there would be no eliminations to do with this 1. So I cannot use this 1 for anything on this arrow. But I still feel like we've got an issue here with 2 and the difficult digit in column 1 and column 9. So let's revisit that question. Let's revisit that question and do it slowly again. So, where do I put 2 in this column? And let's try and generalize it. And if anyone accuses me of bifurcation in this puzzle, assuming I solve it, then I don't know what to say. I am trying to keep this as general as possible. I'm not sure I could do it all in my head, and I'm pretty certain if I did try and do it in my head, people would claim that I hadn't done it logically. So you have to just allow me to visualize this a bit more clearly. Now, let me think about this. So, 2 in this column will never be able to be on either of the strings of the 9 wherever the 9 lives. It will never be able to be on either of the strings of the 8 wherever the 8 lives, and that's because we know that the 2 has to appear in column 5 on the 8 limb that has a 1, 3, 4 on it. So again, that's going to be 4 different rows that the 2 is eliminated from wherever the 8s and the 9s go. Yes, and there must be 2 more from the 6 or the 7, because whether it's 6 or 7, it will definitely have 2 on its arrow. So there are 6 eliminations that will be performed every single time so we can say without loss of generality that 2 is never, ever in these cells in column 1. So it's definitely in one of those 2 cells. Now, if we can say the same about the difficult digit, in fact, let me just check column 9. So column 9, 2 definitely can't be in any of the cells that would align with arrows. So 2 has to be in one of those 2 squares. In an 11 cage. I was wondering if we'd learned something about 9 from that, but I don't think we do, because we don't know. We don't know which of these is the 2. Anyway, let's come back and now think about the difficult digit. Now, by the difficult digit, I mean the digit that is appearing twice on the 6 or 7 planet's arrows, and that is not a 1 or a 2. So we're talking about a 3 or a 4. Now, where I pick this to be 6, the difficult digit is obviously 3, because 3 is appearing twice on these arrows. It's appearing as a moon of the 8. So we've got this, it's the same logic. It's absolutely the same logic. This, how did you come up with this? How? This is completely crazy, because now it's exactly the same. Where would the 3 go in this column? Or where would the difficult digit go? Imagine it doesn't have to, it's 3 or 4. It clearly can't go in those 2 squares. So wherever this 6 is, it can never, or 6 or 7 is, it can never go in, the difficult digit can never go in those 2 squares. Or, you know, if this was a 6, it would be these 2 squares it couldn't go in. So it can't go there. The difficult digit is always appearing as a moon of the 8. So it can't go in either of the 8 things, and it can't go ever opposite the 9. So it's exactly the same. So we now know, and it must be the same over here, it's exactly the same argument, and it is. So we now know that in column 1, there is definitely a 2 in one of those squares, and there is definitely a difficult digit. But we don't know what the difficult digit is. It's a 3 or a 4. And in this column, we have exactly the same argument. There is definitely a 2 in one of those squares, and there is definitely a difficult digit, which is the 3 or the 4. Now, what does this mean? Have we learnt enough to know what's going on? So there is definitely something going on between these squares, isn't there? In fact, maybe that's a sensible thing. I should colour them differently, I think. Let's look at that, because what I'm thinking is that these squares are the key. Because what you can't now have... Oh, this isn't a 9. Oh, this is staggering. This is staggering brilliance by TotallyNormalCat. This is one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen in a Sudoku. This can't be a 9. Why can't this be a 9? Well, it's because where can the 2s go? This is the point, I think. You can't put although the 2's in column 1 and column 9 look like they're sort of in this arrangement, what you could not have is the 2's in those two positions. Because if the 2's are in these two positions, what are we putting into those squares? And the point is, we're not putting a 3 and a 4 pair, because we can't. We have to put the difficult digit. We have to put, you know, if this is a 6, we'd have to put the 3 on both sides. That will never work. So what we've now learnt is that one of these two squares absolutely must be a 2. And if one of these squares absolutely must be a 2, one of those squares, by the power of maths, absolutely must be a 9, and this square is definitely not a 9. That feels like it's an enormous deduction. It probably isn't. So this square now has the option only of 6, 7 and 8. I don't know whether we can limit that any further. So one of these is a 2 opposite a 9. One of them is a 3 or a 4, which will be opposite a 7 or an 8. So we now know that these squares here are made up of the digits 7, 8 and 9. Look at that, it's almost, there's almost something going on, isn't there? One of these two is now a 9. Obviously, if you knew that was a 2, you could eliminate 9 from here. Sorry, I think I'm getting stuck again. I'm not sure I understand. I'm not even sure I understand where to look, to be honest, because I almost feel like I've totally, burnt through all of the logic that these planets are giving me. I've pushed that pretty hard there, and I can't see that it's the digit that's not the difficult digit is really not very restrained, because, for example, if this is a 6 and there's 3 on these arrows, then 4 is the digit that's not the difficult digit. And look, 4 in column 1, for example, could go, I think, here, here, or here. So it would have 3 options. So if this is 6, the difficult digit is 3. So this would be 3, 8 on one side and 2, 9 on the other. Oh, I see. Oh, yes. I found another thing. Because that can't be 7. This can't be 7, look. This is, well, my mind is already blown, but let's have a look at this. Why do I think this can't be 7? Well, if it's 7, and of course we have to bear in mind that 7 could be in any of these positions, but it's not going to matter, because, oh no, is it? No, it's not going to matter. Or is it? Hang on. No, this specific square definitely can't be 7. I don't think we know for sure whether the 7 could be in a different position in this syzygy. I'm confusing myself now. I'm pretty sure this can't be 7 though, because if this is 7, we now know what the difficult digit is. The difficult digit has become 4. And we know that the difficult digit is 4 because of 4 is appearing on so many arrows or or 4 is a moon in so many positions in column 5. So the question now is, once you know 4 is the difficult digit, you know 4 must appear in one of these two squares in column 1, and it must appear in one of those two squares in column 9. Ergo, because we know one of these is 2 from the work we did earlier, the other one is 4. Now, whichever one of these is 4 must have a 7 in these two squares. So this cannot be a 7. So by making this a 7, you make the difficult digit a 4, which puts the difficult digit in one of the purples in row 8, which breaks the puzzle. So this is not a 7. This is a 6 or an 8. It's not a 9. I can remove the 9 from there. So this is a 6 or an 8. And does that do anything to anything? It's a 6 or an 8. Let me just think for a second, sorry. Do we know anything now about anything as a result of that? Is there, I mean, there must be a way, I think, of telling what this is going to be. I feel like this is the key, isn't it? So if this is 8, you'd have to have... It's interesting, actually. It's interesting and annoying. If this is 8, the difficult digit becomes a 4. Not because this is an... Well, it's indirectly because this is an 8. Because if this is an 8, the point then is that those two squares cannot be 8, which means you cannot put 3 in either of those squares. So these become a 2-4 pair, and we know that the difficult digit has to appear in one of these two squares. So the difficult digit has become a 4, which means one of those two squares would have to be a 7. Which means what, though? Why is that? Why is that not correct? Or why is that correct? If 4 is the difficult digit. So we've now, I suppose, reduced the puzzle to 2 possibilities. It's not bifurcation. It's not bifurcation. Do not argue with me about this. I am not bifurcating. I am thinking. And I'm desperately trying not to make... I don't think I've used any vertical logic yet. I really don't. So we're still chatting. We're chatting the cryptic about what the order of these planets is and how the logic works horizontally. So this is a 6 or an 8. We know if it's an 8, the difficult digit is a 4, and this would be a 7-9 pair. Now, if on the other hand this is a 6, hang on, I've got to go back now because that's going to be, there's more possibilities. Well, if this is a 6, the difficult digit becomes a 3, obviously, because there's no 4 on these arrows anymore. There's a 3 on the arrows, which means these squares are a 2-3 pair now. These are 2s and 3s. This is an 8 or a 9. These are 8s and 9s. Got it. Got it. Right, this does not work. This is wrong. Roggen, absolutely stone cold dead. Because if this is 6, where do you put 8 and 9 in box 8? The answer is 2 places, but both places break. Because look, by making this a 6, the difficult digit must be 3, because now we've got 3s along these limbs. So these become a 2-3 pair from all the logic we did earlier. So these become an 8-9 pair. And we know if this is 6, we know we must have an 8 and a 9 in the planets. So there's an 8-9 pair here, an 8-9 pair here. 8-9 in this box has to be in those 2 squares. That square is the problem. Because if this is 8-9, this square has to be a 2 or a 3, and it's going to run into its friends, the 1, 2, 3, along the 6 arrow. This is not 6. I have another digit. This is huge. This is huge. I now know, don't I? I now know what the difficult digit is. Because I know this square for certain is 8, because it's the only thing it can be. I've ruled out 7, 9, and now 6. I now know these squares are not 8. They are a 7-9 pair, which means that these 2 squares are a 2-4 pair, which means these 2 squares are a 2-4 pair, which means this is a 7 or a 9, which means these squares now are, I don't know what they are. I do know what they are. Don't be daft, Simon. Use what you've learnt, because the key is that we've now learnt the difficult digit is 4. Now, if the difficult digit is 4, one of these must be a 7 to make it the difficult digit. And we know one of them is a 9, so this is a 7-9 pair. Get rid of those squares. We can get rid of a lot of stuff now, and we can start to think about the world in its correct position, because we are ordering the universe into its proper constituency. Now, so this 1 and this 8 are correct. I don't like those 9s being up there. So is that it? I think it is. Now I will allow myself the luxury. How long have I had? 52 minutes. That has flown by. I am going to allow myself the luxury after 53 minutes of considering vertical logic in this puzzle in the 12 cage. Because if this is a 7, the only digit that could go in there that would allow this cage to be fulfilled is a 4. Because obviously 1 and 2 would require this digit to be too high. Now, what would happen if this was a 9? We then know we've got 2, 3, 4 on this arrow. But if this is a 9, you can't put 3 here, because that's going to put a 9 there and repeat the 9. So if this is 9, this digit is 4 again. It's always 4. It doesn't matter whether this square is 7 or 9. That's always 4. So that's always 8. Oh, I thought that might do something. It doesn't. Oh yeah, no, it does. It does, because if this is always 4, that's 2. And therefore this is a 4, and therefore this is a 7, and therefore this is a 2, and this is a 9. Therefore this is a 7. This is a 7. And if that's a 7, that is not a 7. And that is the syzygy. 9, 7, 8, I think, is the correct order. Now, maybe we can start to actually solve this puzzle. Yeah, look, I mean the 7 arrow, this must be a 1, 1, 2 pair, and there's a 2 here, so that's a 2 and that's a 1. This is a 1, 2, 4 triple, there's a 1 here, so that's a 1. Those 2 squares are a 2, 4 pair. 4 lives in one of these 2 cells. Now the 9 arrow is 2, 3, 4 in both directions, so this 4 is helpful. That's a 4, that's a 4. 4 must be in one of these 2 squares in box 8. Don't know if we can fix that, but this is a 2-3 pair. These are this is a 2-3-4 triple. Well, there's a 2-4 here, so this must be 3. This must be 4. This must be 2. 2's in one of those two squares. And okay, please don't let me not be able to solve this puzzle now. Now 2 must go there in box 2 by Sudoku. Now I've got, look, now I've got a 2-4 pair in those positions. Now let's just check that that's correct, isn't it? All of the logic we did earlier said that the 8 must have a moon of a 2 and the difficult digit, and now it does. So that's good. This square's got to be a 7 or a 9. Don't know if we can do that actually. So, do we know anything else? And if we don't, how do we learn more? 7? No, 7's not very restricted. 4-2, 4-2. 2-4, 2-3. Oh no, it's all ground to a halt. This would be a disaster. Oh dear. What can we do? Right, I see what we can do. We can look at the 8 arrow, because the 8 arrow, one of its limbs is 1, 2, 5. One of them is 1, 3, 4. Now, if you look at this one here and ask, can any of those 3 squares be 2? The answer is no. So this is a 1, 3, 4 triple, and look, I've got a 1, 4 pair here. So that's a 3, I think. I think this is a 1, 4 pair. Now, this 3 may not matter too much. Not sure. But this now, yeah, this, in fact, no, this 4 matters, because look, that's fixing this as a 2, that as a 4, that's a 9 all of a sudden. And we can go further than that, because we can say that this is a 1, 2, 5 triple, because it's not 1, 3, 4. And if this is 1, 2, 5, the only place that 2 can go on it is there. And these have become a 1, 5 pair out of nowhere. And now we can stare again at the grid and see if we can learn more of its secrets. Surely we can learn a little bit more here. I'm not sure which digit to focus on though. 1 I can see has got to be in this domino. So 1's got to be in one of those 2 positions. Have I done all the 4s? No, no, I've got this X-wing of 4s left. What about 2s? Where are 2s? Have we done 2s? Oh, I've got an X-wing on 2s left as well, these squares. 3s then. Oh, I don't seem to have any 3s at all. Oh, that's a bit disappointing. Can we do more with 3s? Nearly. 3's got to be in one of those 2 squares. Oh dear. 7s? Yeah, I can see 7 is a little bit restricted in box. This box up here. Forgotten its name, I'm so confused. 3 has to be in one of those 2 squares by our old friend Sudoku. Okay. That's good and everything. So let's have a look along this row. Maybe we can do something more. 1, 3, 6 and 8. No, that's not going to work, is it? 1s. I feel like 1s might matter. I don't know why I feel like that, but I do. How can we get a grip on 1s? Or can we even get a grip on 1s? That might... there's a 1, 4 pair there. Yeah, no. Oh, so nearly, but not. This is a 1-5 pair. So 1 in this box. Oh yeah, I can get this square to be a 1. Gosh, that's really hard. I don't know why that's so hard for me to see, but it was. Look at the 1 here. The 1 is not in those squares. Now, because this is a 1-5 pair, this square is not a 1. So the 1 in box 7 is in one of those two positions. Now, that means the 1 in box 1 is in one of these two positions, where it's finding its friend the 1 in box 2. So we now can't have a 1 in those 3 squares or those 3 squares, which means there's only one place for a 1, and that's here, which resolves this, resolves this, resolves this. That felt exciting. Now 3 has become a little bit restricted in box 9. That's lovely, look. That's going to remove a 3 from this square, which places a 3 here, which places a 1, places a 5, places a 1. Oh, please don't. Please, that's a 9 now. I don't think you realise how desperately I am hoping that I can solve this puzzle, because wouldn't it be wonderful if this appears on the channel? It's an incredible, incredible puzzle. And one of the hardest puzzles I think I've ever solved on the channel. 7, 7. This is a 6-7 pair, which I can do. I'll go on. 7 and 6 go in. This square's a 5, and it is a 5. That looks good. This is 3, 6, and 8. That one is not 3. Well, I feel like I'm doing better than I was a couple of moments ago, so this is, I feel like it's progress. 6, 8, 9. This has got to be a 6 or a 9. That can be anything, 6, 8, or 9. 7, 7 here looks good. Yeah, okay, that can't be a 7, which suggests there's a 7 up here, which suggests there's a 7 here and here. And that means there's a 1 here and here, and probably, yeah, all those 1s have suddenly gone in. This square can't be a 5. We need to put a 3 in one of those, so that's a 3, 6, 8 triple. 3 is definitely in one of these two squares, which means, and there's 3 here as well. Let's do all these. Those squares have got to be 6, 8, 9. This 8 is a beautiful 8. That gives me an 8 here, a 9 here, and a 6 here. It gives me an 8 there by the power of our old friend Sudoku again. 6 goes in here. Now, those two squares are a 5, 6 pair. And there's a 6 down here, which is looking good. So 6 and 5 go in. That's a 5 by Sudoku. This is a 6, 8, 9 triple. And that is not a 9. Oh, imagine if I've made a mistake. Oh, this 8 of them. Oh no, I messed it up. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. 3 here, 6, 8, 5, 6. Oh, this is horrible. 5, 9 pair there looks okay. 3 goes here. 3 goes here, which is nice. That places a 3 at the bottom of the grid as well. 6, 8 pair do not get a deadly pattern as a result of this. This square's a 5. 5's got to go there. 5's got to go here. 9's got to go here. This has got to be an 8. This is a 9 by Sudoku. That's a 6. That's an 8. That's a 9. That's a 6. That's a 9. That's a 6. That's an 8. And that is an 8. And I might have done this puzzle. Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness me. What a ridiculous puzzle that is. That, I do not know. It beggars belief to me that you would come up with this puzzle as an idea, and that it's actually possible to solve it with this amount of information. It is a thing of great beauty. That it's that you can work out the order of these planets. How did you come up with this, Totally Normal Cat? How? It's one of the most original and brilliant puzzles I've ever seen in my life. Let me know in the comments how I got on. Let me know how you got on. I really hope some of you have managed to solve it, maybe more efficiently than I did. I really did my best, I promise. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.